50 years ago, the incidence of childhood obesity in this country was less than 8%. As of last year, we're up to 24%. Welcome to Getting Understanding with Dr. Daryl Ellis. Today, we're going to focus on the topic of childhood obesity, specifically the 7 major causes of childhood obesity. The first main cause in this country for childhood obesity are an excess amount of processed foods. We kind of discussed this in the video where we talked about obesity in general in this country. A lot of times what we expect here in this country is food that is fast, food that is readily accessible, and food that tastes good. And that has developed in this country into a lot of processed food, prepackaged foods, foods that are made to taste good without necessarily taking into account their nutritional value and also their caloric value. The second leading cause is eating addictions. And this may come as a surprise to many of you, but in the young adult and adolescent age groups, eating addictions is a major problem, particularly overeating. We've gotten into a place in our culture where food and, if you will, emotional satisfaction are very closely linked. People go to food for comfort, and as a result, with a lot of the stresses that our children are faced with, social media pressures, peer pressures, they turn to food in many cases to self-soothe themselves. And it's very much increased the number of obese children and adolescents that we're seeing in the United States. The third point, and one that you probably would not think of, is slanted marketing. Here, this is an industrialized country that operates on a capitalist system. And as a result, there are many companies and corporations that are in the food industry that the bottom line is really what their concern is. And they figured out the psychology of children. And junk food companies particularly have become masters at marketing to children foods that are unhealthy, full of sugar, that are high in calories, high in saturated fats, that ultimately will not work well for them in the long run. They do it by packaging them in bright colors and making the association with certain types of foods with having fun. And children gravitate to this. They bug their parents about getting these type of foods, and they overindulge in them. We mentioned in a previous video that genetics can play a role in obesity. And in childhood obesity, we see a particular hormonal mechanism called leptin resistance that can lead to obesity. Leptin is a hormone that is secreted from your fat cells. As the amount of fat cells in your body increase, the amount of leptin increases. The way it's supposed to work is that leptin goes to your pituitary gland in your brain and it signals satiety, meaning it's supposed to cause your appetite to be suppressed, decreasing the amount of food that you take in, thereby limiting the amount of fat that you're producing. In certain population in our children, we see that there is a problem with the leptin that is being secreted by their fat cells. And they get an abnormal signal in their brain. And rather than it telling them that they're full and to stop eating, they have the absolute opposite effect. And they continue to overeat even more. The fifth leading cause of obesity in children are medications. In many cases where we have children who are being medicated for other problems, particularly seizure disorders, problems where they've developed childhood diabetes, where they have issues with respect to psychiatric illnesses, we're giving them medications that cause weight gain. If you have a child who was started on a medication and you're seeing an accelerated amount of weight gain, you need to talk to a physician about choosing an alternative medication to treat the same problem. Point number 6, and one that is really also not thought of often, are areas in our country that we call food deserts. Food deserts are areas where usually in lower income, lower socioeconomic communities where there just is not adequate access to healthy foods. And as a result, the preponderance that is available are those prepackaged foods, processed foods, fast foods and junk foods rather than good healthy vegetables, lean meats, and things that are not really readily available in those communities. And it leads to, based on socioeconomic class, a disproportionate amount of childhood obesity in those lower socioeconomic groups. And last but not least, and this is something that goes to both those who are raising their children and those of us who take care of children. It's a lack of knowledge. In medical school, we just don't get a lot of education on proper diet, proper exercise, and proper teaching in terms of instructing parents and actually helping children to make good, healthy food choices. It's something that we need to spend a little bit more time and attention to the point where many insurance companies are now making this a quality metric for physicians who take care of children. Have you discussed with them diet? Have you discussed with them exercise? Are you addressing their body mass index, particularly if it's over a certain amount? Think about it. Thank you for tuning in. These are just some of the highlights. I want you to tune into part 2. We're going to take this discussion a little bit further in our next video and talk about some of the what we call obesity-related illnesses, comorbid conditions that can occur in children who are classified in the obese category. I want you to hear me when we say that I'm not on this topic to try and make light of it in any way. This is not something that can be used or should be used to make fun of any group of people. It's a serious problem, and it's becoming more and more of a problem in this country. I want to use this as an opportunity to break that barrier, one of the main causes of obesity being lack of knowledge, to be able to give you knowledge, give you information of possible causes, and knowing those causes, develop possible solutions to the problem. It's a serious problem in this country, something we need to address. Let's start here. If you like what we're talking about, if you feel like this information is helpful to you, I want you to subscribe to our YouTube page. There's a lot more to come. Make sure to hit the like button. It helps us with our YouTube algorithm. And also, make sure that you're clicking that notification button, that little bell, so that as we roll out new videos, you'll be notified and you won't miss any of the valuable information that we're providing. God bless you.